Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to all. This is the statement on the Cabinet meeting of Wednesday, the 13th of September, 2023, on issues of the environment. On the G20 summit, Cabinet congratulated Prime Minister Modi and India for hosting a successful G20 summit and the admission of the African Union, AU, as a full member of the G20. South Africa, under the leadership of His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, advocated for the admission of the AU as a full member of the G20, including during the 2022 G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. The AU's participation as a full member will strengthen the voice of the Global South in general and Africa in particular on global economic governance. South Africa also used the summit to advocate for an enhanced and expanded global partnership for sustainable development to meet climate change commitments. The G20 leaders committed, amongst others, to accelerate strong, sustainable, balanced, and inclusive growth, accelerate the full and effective implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, pursue the low carbon emissions, climate resilient, and environmentally sustainable development pathways by championing an integrated and inclusive approach, improving access to medical countermeasures, facilitate more supplies and production capacities in developing countries to prepare better for future health emergencies, scale up financing from all sources for accelerating progress on the SDGs, accelerate efforts and enhance resources towards achieving the Paris Agreement, including its temperature goal, pursue reforms for better, bigger, and more effective multilateral development banks to address global challenges to maximize developmental impact, close gender gaps and promote the full, equal, effective, and meaningful participation of women in the economy as decision makers. And lastly, better integrate the perspectives of countries, including LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDCs into future G20 agenda and strengthen the voice of developing countries in global decision-making. On the margins of the G20 summit, South Africa participated in the EU-African leaders meeting that deliberated on food security, grain and fertilizer supply, and the reform of the global financial architecture. On the African Climate Summit, Cabinet congratulated President Ruto of Kenya for successfully hosting Africa's first ever climate summit. The summit showcased Africa's significant renewable energy resources and the opportunities presented for the continent's sustainable growth and development. The summit declaration called for new, sustainable, non-debt financial sources to finance the just energy transitions and build climate resilience in a manner that creates jobs and fight poverty. And on the sidelines of the summit, South Africa participated in the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance Forum and took over the chairpersonship of the forum. On electricity, Cabinet was updated on the current plant maintenance program that is being implemented by Eskom to ensure the sustainability of Eskom's plant. The concerted implementation of the planned fleet maintenance program has resulted in increased stages of load shedding in recent days. The implementation of stage 6 load shedding was a regress from the trends that prevailed in the previous weeks of lower stages of load shedding. Cabinet was assured that the current implementation of increased stages of load shedding is a short-term phase as Eskom prepares for more sustained and lessened stages of load shedding in the not-so-distant future. The Minister in the Presidency for Electricity, Dr. Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, will continue to update the nation on the progress being made to address the current electricity challenges and the steps being taken to ultimately end load shedding. On the economy, investments and trade, we start on the gross domestic product. Cabinet is pleased with the resilience of the South African economy as shown by South Africa's gross domestic products second quarter data as released by Stats SA. This is despite the difficult global economic conditions and the persistence of electricity situation in the country. The Stats SA has reported an increase of GDP by 0.6% in the second quarter of 2023. The manufacturing industry increased by 2.2% in the second quarter, contributing 0.3 of a percentage point to GDP growth. The continued improvements in manufacturing data indicates improvements in the production capacity, which in turn contributes to an increase in total manufacturing employment. The petroleum, chemical products, rubber and plastic products division made the largest contribution to the increase in the second quarter. The basic iron and steel, non-ferrous metal products and machinery division also made a significant contribution to the growth in this industry. The finance, real estate and business services industry increased by 0.7% in the second quarter, contributing 0.2 of a percentage point to GDP growth. The agriculture, forestry and fishery industry increased by 4.2% in the second quarter, contributing 0.1 of a percentage point to the growth. The personal services industry increased by 0.7% in the second quarter, contributing 0.1 of a percentage point to GDP growth. On the implementation of the poultry sector, Cabinet welcomed the 750 jobs created at the Rainbow Chickens facility in Hammarsdale, which points to the successful implementation of the poultry master plan. During 2017, Rainbow Chickens entrenched more than 1,000 workers and closed their operations. After adoption of the master plan, government implemented a variety of measures to safeguard the local poultry industry, including placing anti-dumping duties on poultry imported from producers in 5 countries. This, together with increased investment and measures to transform the industry and bring more black-owned firms into the market, has seen real success. Rainbow Chickens has since reopened and invested 220 million in the operations in Hammarsdale, and overall employment within the poultry industry has been reported to have increased by 2,780 jobs, and the more than 2 billion in fresh investment has been implemented. The 5 billion investment pledges by auto component manufacturers, Cabinet welcomed approximately 5 billion investment pledges by auto component manufacturers made at the NECAM show recently. These pledges by companies operating in South Africa shows the confidence of the industry in the South African market and the opportunities to localize production of components, providing auto assemblers with a more resilient supply base. Shortly after the announcement, the Minister of the Trade, Industry and Competition officially opened the Bentler plant extension in the Eastern Cape, producing components for local car assemblers. The expansion of production is estimated to replace imports worth 1 billion rands, and the workforce grew to 743 workers. The Stellantis investment in South Africa, Cabinet welcomed the confirmation by Stellantis of its intention to develop a greenfield manufacturing facility in Kucha in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. The greenfield manufacturing project is planned to be completed by the end of 2025. The first launch planned for early 2026 is for a 1T pickup truck with volumes expected to reach up to 50,000 annually, including for export, in line with the industry master plan known as the Automotive Production Development Plan. Direct employment to support the first capacity step is expected at 1,000 jobs. Stellantis will massively invest in over 500,000 hours in training and skills to develop and support local teams to the level of global standards. We are targeting a localization rate of over 30%. On the largest Smart Skills Center, the Chemical Industry Education and Training Authority launched a Smart Skills Center in Babanango in KwaZulu-Natal, which will provide tech-enabled learning programs in the province. The project is part of the government's plans to revolutionize digital skills development, and it will be expanded to all provinces. In addition, Cabinet welcomed the launch of the National Plan for Post-School Education and Training that is aimed at aligning skills development to the demands of the workplace and thus help address Africa's skills mismatch. On infrastructure, on water and sanitation, this relates to the Section 63 intervention in Mfuleni local municipality. Cabinet received an update on the progress with the Section 63 intervention in Mfuleni local municipality in Gauteng. Cabinet was informed of the causes of wastewater problems in Mfuleni and the interventions being implemented to address the problems in the short, medium, and long term. Cabinet was briefed on the progress made by Rand Water to address sewer spillages through repairing collapsed or burst sewer pipelines and unblocking blockages in sewer pipelines. In addition, Cabinet was also briefed on the progress with the refurbishment and/or upgrade of sewer pump stations and replacement of major pipelines that have collapsed or were experiencing frequent pipe bursts. This included mechanical and electrical repairs to the wastewater treatment plants in the municipality. In the long term, the work will involve the upgrade of capacity of 3 major wastewater treatment works, namely the Luikei, Sebokeng, and Risprait wastewater treatment works. Together with the Department of Water and Sanitation and the Rand Water, the GCIS will organize a site inspection at Mfuleni so that as the media you can see for yourself and update South Africans in terms of the progress that is being attained in resolving finally the wastewater challenges of Mfuleni, which has bedeviled this country for the longest time. On the N1, excuse me, I'm from Limpopo, so the N1 comes first. On the N4, Montrose Skumas Kloof interchange, Cabinet welcomed the opening of the upgraded N4 Montrose Skumas Kloof interchange in Mpumalanga, which forms part of the Maputo Corridor Development Initiative. The renovation will reduce travel time for road freight transport and will ensure increased safety for all road users. The project created over 350 jobs and provided subcontracting opportunities for several local companies in line with our government's commitment to uplift and skill local communities. On the KwaMashu-Durban passenger rail corridor, Cabinet welcomed the reopening of the KwaMashu-Durban Station passenger rail corridor, which also introduced the new safe and clean blue trains on the corridor. 1313 cooperatives will clean and take care of the trains and the train stations. The number of train passengers is registering phenomenal increases as trains continue to offer most affordable means of transport. On the fight against crime and corruption, on Operation Bring Back, Cabinet commended the ramping up of Operation Bring Back to identify and recover illegally occupied state buildings. As part of this initiative, the national government is providing support to municipalities to ensure the enforcement of bylaws to eradicate hijacking of buildings, their effective management and utilization, and ability to account for the utilization of government's immovable assets. And we've seen this work in the Johannesburg CBD being ramped up. On the integrated fight against crime, Cabinet welcomed the recent successes by the country's law enforcement agencies in the war against crime. In the first quarter of 2023, the Hawks arrested 611 suspects and seized various items, including precious metals and diamonds, endangered species, vehicles, cash, firearms, ammunition, counterfeit goods, explosive, and electronic devices. The total value is 6.1 billion rands of this bust by the Hawks. In addition, law enforcement arrested 9 Zamazama kingpins and were granted preservation orders against their assets that included luxury vehicles such as Lamborghinis, etc., and precious metals and cash to the value of 34 million. This goes against the narrative that says, in our fight against Zamazamas, we are only targeting runners. We are targeting the kingpins. Cabinet commends the law enforcement agencies on their fight to dismantle crime syndicates. The successful actions in dealing with the heavily armed gang linked to a series of cash in transit heists in Limpopo is commendable. Cabinet reiterates that law enforcement should leave no stone unturned in dealing with those who seek to undermine South Africa's national security and the laws of the Republic. Cabinet welcomed the arrest of 9 Northern Cape Department of Health officials for PPE corruption. The suspects are accused of fraud, corruption, money laundering, and contravening the Public Finance Management Act. We need patience of our people in terms of the arrest of PPE corrupt officials and their business partners, but we're gradually making progress. On government's position on the national health insurance, Cabinet has collectively reiterated its firm commitment for the implementation of the national health insurance as a way of ensuring that all South Africans have access to quality health care. The commitment to NHI is premised on the fact that both the public and private healthcare sectors are not sustainable. The current parallel and fragmented system must be integrated into a national system so that all resources are accessible to all people. The implementation of the NHI is premised on the implementation of a comprehensive approach to accelerating infrastructure improvements in the public sector. This is not something that should be contemplated separately from the reforms in the NHI bill. Focusing narrowly on the intended reforms of private financing of healthcare has detracted from the bill's intended reforms of public and private provision of services. It is in reforming the service platform that space will be created for decongesting the public facilities. When the NHI fund is able to purchase services from both the public and private providers, we will begin to see the pressure lifted from the highly pressurized public facilities. The intentional distortion that the passage of the bill will reform everything overnight is mischievous at best. The transitional provisions are that the implementation will take time, that the reforms will be implemented in phases, meaning that at each and every phase there will be evaluation of the impact and the necessary gaps and corrective measures will be taken. Government's position on the fiscal constraints. Cabinet appreciates the current fiscal constraints, which are not unique to South Africa, but has resulted in in-year budget shortfall. Cabinet has iterated that measures to address the budget shortfall must not impact negatively on the service delivery. The Minister of Finance will shortly issue guidelines clarifying the unintended misunderstanding arising from the cost containment letter issued on the 31st of August 2023. In addition, as part of the in-year performance review of progress in implementation of priorities agreed to with ministers, the President and the Deputy President will meet with individual ministers to ensure that fiscal management does not derail the agreed to priorities. On Cabinet decisions, one is the policy on prevention and treatment for substance use disorders. Cabinet approved for gazetting the policy on prevention and treatment of substance use disorders, which aims to tackle the country's substance abuse levels. The policy will supplement other substance abuse initiatives, such as the National Drug Master Plan that was first implemented between 2013 and 2017. It will address gaps that have been implemented in the Prevention of and Treatment for Substance Abuse Act. The policy proposes community-based prevention programs that can be effective in helping to address major challenges arising from substance abuse. The policy will be published in the Department of Social Development website, dsd.gov.za. Implementation of the Tourism Equity Fund. Cabinet was updated on the settlement reached on the implementation of the Tourism Equity Fund as a result of the court case brought by AfriForum and Solidarity. Cabinet was updated on the actions taken to implement the settlement agreement and the changes to the TEF effected on the basis of the settlement agreement. Accordingly, the TEF will be implemented in line with existing tourism sector code targets of minimum 30% black ownership instead of the initially proposed 51% black ownership. Cabinet supported the implementation of the TEF. On the bills, the Draft Public Service Commission Bill, Cabinet approved the submission of the Public Service Commission Bill to Parliament, which amends the PSC Act number 46 of 1997. The amendments will enable the Public Service Commission to operate as an independent and impartial constitutional body with a view to improve its effectiveness and efficiency within the public service. The bill also extends the mandate of the Public Service Commission to municipalities and public entities and provides a legislative framework for the PSC's oversight role in the implementation of the national framework on the professionalization of the public sector. To the Draft Aquaculture Development Bill, Cabinet approved the publication of the Draft Aquaculture Development Bill for public comment. The purpose of the bill is to promote the development of a reasonable aquaculture sector for meaningful contribution to food security and economic development for the country, support greater participation of small businesses, especially those owned by women and youth, and promote the transformation of the aquaculture sector. Draft National State Enterprise Bill. Cabinet approved the publication of the Draft National State Enterprise Bill for public comment. The draft bill proposes the consolidation of state shareholding in strategic state-owned enterprises and the establishment of the State's Asset Management SOC Limited as a holding company for state shareholding of strategic SOEs with the state as a sole shareholder. For the repeal of the South African Airways Bill, Cabinet approved the publication of the repeal of the South African Airways Bill for public comment. The repeal of the SAA Act is aimed at giving effect to the changes of government no longer being a majority shareholder of the SAA. The repeal of the SAA Act does not change the continued corporate existence of the company under Companies Act, and the rights attached to the government shares in SAA will be exercised by the designated shareholder representatives on behalf of the state. On appointments, and all appointments are subject to verifications of qualifications and relevant clearances. Appointment of Board of Directors of members of the Vaal Central Water Board. Mr. Makosini Solomon Msibi, Chairperson. Mr. Lungile Wright Bomela, Deputy Chairperson. Mr. Luvuyo Xolantoyi. Ms. Elizabeth Cornelia Rockman. Ms. Ntikila Sandlana. Mr. Andrew Modisa Utsile Ranto. Mr. Desmond Solomon Ezekiel Fransman. Ms. Machiho Gail Messi-Jele, and Ms. Buipilo Felicity Nakedi, Ms. Tepiso Dorin Sehwe Backward, and Mr. Tabo Moses Manyon. Appointment of the board members of Umngeni Utukela Water Board. Advocate Vusi Kuzwayo, Chairperson. Ms. Notando Nonkululeko Mkize, Ms. Sinamile Masango, Ms. Sylvia Tandazile Mhlongo, Ms. Lengiwe Mvubu, Mr. Kanyisa Stanley Shandu, Mr. Lavendra Nada Gopal, Mr. Sbusiso Wycliffe Mkize, Mr. Kwazi Kwenkosi Innocent Mshengu, Ms. Diana Gloria Hozok, Mr. Cornish James Timothy, and Mr. Sipho Maxwell Mtolo. Appointment of board members of the Overbeck Water Board. Mr. R. Benjamin is a reappointment, is the chairperson. Miss S.D. Mayinga, deputy chairperson. Mr. D. Lufutso, Mr. N.D. Siwatla Madiba, Professor G.J. Davis, Miss M.A. Malunga, Miss N. Singh Maharaj, Dr. T. Kelly, Mr. E.B. Mnisi, Mr. L. Osoren, and Mr. D.H. Van Papendorp. Appointment of non-executive members of the board of the National Meteorology Institute of South Africa. Dr. Precious Gugulethu Mutshweni, Professor Andrew Cedric Bafla, Professor Lorna Benita Holtman, Ms. Sinamile Masango, Ms. Sarah Natalia Prince, Dr. James Chilongo, Dr. Waynard Lowe, Dr. Aruferi Maxwell Chabungwe, and Ms. Babala Songongo. Appointment of members of the Patent Examination Board, Ms. Tandiwe Kumalo, Ms. Paul CBC, Ms. Shanaz Mohammed, Mr. John Findero, Dr. Magdalene Klein, and Ms. Matuto Masitla Mafa. Appointment of the non-executive directors of the Road Accident Fund, Ms. Lorraine Francho as the chairperson, Dr. Nomonde Wisa Mabuya Mulwete, deputy chairperson, Advocate Nontutuzelo Njeza, Mr. Moses Nyama, Mr. Tulani Samuel Chabalala, Mr. Simpiwe Blose, Ms. Pamela Bongeka Matebula, Mr. Duke William Matebula, Mr. Tinyiko Mhlari, oh sorry, it's not a Mr. Miss Tinyiko Mhlari, Dr. Polile Dlanga, Dr. Polile Dladla, Mr. Gwena Cuthbert Komape, and Ms. Bongiwe B. Kumalo. Upcoming events. This year's main event for Heritage Day will be held at the Princess Magogo Stadium in KwaMashu, in KwaZulu-Natal on the 24th of September, and Cabinet called on all South Africans to join us as we celebrate our rich heritage. UNGA, the UN General Assembly 78, colloquially known as UNGA, South Africa will participate in the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly at the United Nations from the 18th to the 26th of September 2023 under the theme Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards Peace, Prosperity, Progress and Sustainability for All. UNESCO 9th African Engineer Week and the 7th Africa Engineering Conference, South Africa, through the Engineering Council of South Africa and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, will host the UNESCO 9th African Engineering Week and the 7th Africa Engineering Conference on the 25th to the 28th of September 2023 in Pretoria. South Africa's school sport in Indaba. The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture will hold a national school sports Indaba in Bestwood Hotel in Johannesburg, starting from today, the 14th of September to the 15th of September 2023. This is part of the work of the department to reactivate school sports and build national cohesion, but as a basis of building stronger national teams. Border Management Authority launch. The launch of the Border Management Authority The Border Management Authority came into effect on the 1st of April 2023 as an autonomous Schedule 3A public entity, serving the law as the third law enforcement authority in South Africa. And this will be officially launched on the 5th of October 2023. Africa Growth Opportunity Act Forum, Business Forum. South Africa will host the AGOA Forum from the 2nd to the 4th of November 2023. The forum will discuss trade matters between the United States of America and the eligible and participating African countries. On congratulations, Cabinet extend its congratulations and well wishes to the Springboks for flying the South African flag high and making the country proud by winning their opening match against Scotland at the 2023 Rugby World Cup. And the Minister of Sports says we must indicate to the nation that on the 28th of October 2023, we will all be watching the Springboks as they play in the finals in defense of the Ellis Webb Trophy. Cabinet extends its congratulations to Tariq Musa and the staff at Shino Customs who built a custom BMW E9 2800 CS named Nkabi, which beat over 6,000 of Europe's best cars at the Slammed UK show in Birmingham. Cabinet extends its congratulations to the South African women scientists who have been rewarded for excellence at the 2023 installment of the South African Women in Science Awards, or SAWISA, that was hosted by the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Blade Nzimande. And Cabinet wishes to congratulate the following winners: Distinguished Women Researchers in Humanities and Social Sciences, Professor Catherine Ward; Distinguished Young Women Researchers in Humanities and Social Sciences, Professor Anastasia Mamabulo; Distinguished Women Researchers on Natural and Engineering Sciences, Professor Janine Barbara Adams; Distinguished Young Women Researchers on Natural and Engineering Sciences, Professor Usisipo Feleni; Distinguished Young Women Special Award, Dr. Tisetso Elizabeth Lipoto; Distinguished Woman Special Award, Dr. Patience Tenjiwe Mtunzi Kufa; DSI Ndoni Mchunu Fellowship Masters Award, Miss Nyeleti Precious Mabaso; Miss Mujaji Rebecca Litswalo; Miss Giselle Roque Fanika; DSI Innovation Mchunu Fellowship Doctoral Awards, Miss Munira Hussein; Miss Aleta Susan Elizabeth Nokie; Miss Witumelo Mahabutlane; Miss Tendo Keti Makado; Miss Bambesiwe Mbesi May; Miss Kala Dodo; Miss Ramahahlela Betty Sibati; and Miss Lusani Mamushiana. On condolences, Cabinet expresses its condolences to the families and friends of the Kingdom and the people of Morocco following the devastating earthquake that claimed thousands of lives and injured scores more. The government and the people of Libya following the devastating floods that claimed thousands of lives. The family and friends of visionary entrepreneur, philanthropist, and founder of Pick and Pay, Ackerman, who believed in the vision of a better South Africa and mentored and inspired countless people throughout his life. He was also an esteemed member of the Order of the Baobab. The family and friends of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the founder and president of the Inkatha Freedom Party and South Africa's first Minister of Home Affairs, but also the traditional Prime Minister of the Zulu Kingdom. Tireless campaign of human rights and freedom, Miss Amy Rayston Thornton, who played an instrumental role in the 1956 treason trial support as a patron of the, and also was a patron of the UDF and in the return of exiles to South Africa. Esteemed freedom fighter, activist, and former ambassador, Mr. Zef Magetla, who dedicated his life to serve Africa. Former Business Day editor, Jim Jones, who played a critical role in shaping public discourse during the transition to democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister in the Presidency, for the comprehensive cabinet deliberations and statement. Of importance, Minister, it's the issue of the green shoots in the economy, in the investment, and also in trade. Good news of issues that are showing are quite welcome, and as summarized, Minister, they show the resilience of our economy. Thank you also, Minister, for the variety of issues that the Cabinet touched on, including, of course, the challenge you have put to us as government communication services to arrange a media tour, Minister, to the identified Mfuleni water project. We will definitely arrange a media tour to take the media to look at the work of the water and sanitation, as of course was put through the Section 63 intervention in the municipality. On that note, Minister, I will then request the questions. Firstly, I will start in the press room for the questions, and as per the normal tradition, you introduce yourself and the media house that you are from. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. This is just 3 questions from my side. I just want to understand the cabinet got from the minister in terms of the expenditure problem. The minister has been saying we can raise ourselves to the way. So, to what extent was the media, was the cabinet briefed about the challenge and the need for the country to go through these levels of load shedding? And secondly, the entire board of Post Bank has resigned, blaming the minister, Khumbudzo, for that. Just want to, and one of the reasons they are saying is that they feel that the minister had been interfering in their work. So just a response of government, the cabinet is aware of that, and what's the response of government? And lastly, did the cabinet discuss the removal of the public protector? This is the first ever incident we've seen where public protector has been removed through parliamentary processes, and eventually the president having to make that final decision. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Nico. Minister, with your kind permission, we might want to invite at least 4 questions online, and then we'll then take the final round. I will then request my colleague, Ms. Peliswa Sebati, to lead us in the first 4 questions.
Thanks, Mr. B. The first question is from Christian Duplessis from Network 24. It's basically a follow-up to what the Zimeko just asked about the advocate Khumbudzo removal. Christian is asking, now that advocate Khumbudzo has been removed as a public protector, what benefits in terms of pension benefits will she lose because she did not finish her term, and can you provide a detailed breakdown of amounts? On the same issue, will the advocate Khumbudzo be receiving a golden handshake, and what will this entail? The next question will be from Paul Becchiato, Bloomberg. When will the Minister of Finance issue the guidelines mentioned in the statement, considering the looming fiscal constraints? Is cabinet looking at projects that be cancelled or postponed or delayed? If so, what are those projects? Another one is from Christian Duplessis. What is the amount of the projected budget shortfall for the current financial year, and what are the reasons for the shortfall? Again, he's got 2 more questions. What are the impact of the shortfall being experienced now already? What are the initiatives undertaken by government to resolve the issue? Will that be the 4 unit?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. We will then take another round of questions after Minister have responded to this. But let me check if there is any hand in the house. Yes, thank you very much, and my apologies. You might switch on that the red button there to verify your voice.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robert. Minister, the outcomes from the Africa climate change. What interests South Africa? Which of the outcomes is Cabinet seeing to benefit South Africa? Secondly, Minister, the cost of living is too high, Minister, in South Africa. Recently, petrol, increased, so high, went up so high, Minister. But not that, also the food prices still going high, Minister, as we go into the festive season. As Cabinet, perhaps, Minister, make, as part of the discussion with regard to the economy, discuss this, especially for the poor. And lastly, what plans did Cabinet discuss in addressing and stopping hijacked buildings? In the city of Johannesburg, Minister, the challenge has been the city is looking for alternative accommodation for the victims and the survivors of the inferno. Now, where one is sitting, Minister, looks like they have to take from their own budget. I'm not sure whether have they perhaps maybe approached it to ask for funding with regard to addressing this matter. Thank you.
Maybe the drill of introducing yourself for the record. Just for the record, the drill of introducing yourself. The name and the media house.
Sorry, Minister, it's Peter from Kaya News.
Thank you very much, Peter. Minister.
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to start on the easy ones. All the questions that relates to the removal benefits of the former public protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. They are not the removal of the public protector is not the responsibility of the executive. It is the responsibility of Parliament, and therefore Cabinet does not discuss matters that are not within its area and realm of responsibility. Those questions would be better be asked to Parliament, who will then announce their next steps. But Cabinet, we do not even discuss it. It's not our area of responsibility. On the board of Post Bank, Cabinet was not briefed, and I'm sure the responsible minister will do the briefing. On the cost of living, in the last Cabinet briefing, we received a briefing from the Competition Commission in terms of the price gauging and other measures, and Cabinet resolved that the economic economic transformation or economic infrastructure and development cluster must come up with a plan of how to mitigate the impact of the increasing or high cost of living on poor South Africans. So that cluster, which is led by Minister Kubai and co-chaired by Minister Mantashe, is hard at work, and when they are finished with the work, they will then brief Cabinet and will brief you accordingly. On the extent of the briefing, as it relates to the electricity challenges, it was quite extensive, the briefing. And in that briefing, though Minister Ramkhupa will then give you, I think he does the updates on the Sundays. Cabinet is assured that the increases in the stages of load shedding are indeed temporary, because there are clear plans of when will additional capacity come through, including capacity, and I had to get the units, including the return to service of Kusile Unit 1 to 4, and the re-energizing of Kusile 5, and the additional work that is being done. So Minister Ramkhupa will brief you, but Cabinet is assured in terms of the measures that are being taken that the increased stages of load shedding are indeed a temporary measure. And when he gives you the details, I do not want to speak and not very accurate on the facts when the minister responsible will then brief. But we are confident as Cabinet that we are on the top of the on the shortfall of the budget shortfall. Treasury has informed us that the shortfall amount changes as tax revenue comes in on a month basis. And I would like to get the Minister of Finance to then speak to the amount. I do not want to speak to the amount without the necessary context, because you know the sensitivities of such matters to the market. You need the responsible Minister or Director General to then explain those matters. On the I'm looking for the electronic questions I'd requested so that I do not have to write all of them. I requested that they get shared with me. May they be shared when I'm talking about the climate change benefits. I think what is fundamental in the climate change summit that was held in Africa is the matter of agreeing to that we need to find additional resources which are non-debt, because currently the funding of just energy transition, like if we give the example of South Africa, the bulk of the funding for just energy transition is debt. And it's like committing the future generations into debts for the sins of the past and previous generations. So where we are, we as Africans, we have said more resources must be mobilized that are non-debt linked, so that we can then fund the climate changes that are necessary. In terms of the online question, there was a question around when will the Minister of Finance release the guidelines. We are hoping that not later than tomorrow, the guidelines should be out. And on the question of whether the looming fiscal constraints are the projects that Cabinet is looking at cutting. At the moment, there are no specific projects that Cabinet is looking to cut, but we have acknowledged that there are inefficiencies within the systems, that if those inefficiencies are improved, there can be both in the short, medium, and long term be serious improvements in the budget, and also the fact that the current fiscal constraints are not domestic; they are global. So we can't plan only for the short term. We must plan also for the medium and long term, given that we don't have control on the external factors playing on causing the constraints, fiscal constraints. As indicated in the statement, this is not unique to South Africa. Other countries are experiencing same. And we're also clear in terms of the statement to say the priorities that have been agreed between the President and the Deputy President and the ministers, individual ministers, they are not going to be affected, and the individual ministers will engage with both the President and the Deputy President as part of the in-year performance review and progress review of the implementation of those priorities.
Right, well, we're going to, of course, come out of that cabinet briefing hosted by Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, where she's touched on a few things. She's talked about recovery in the poultry industry in the country, just at the top of that briefing. She's also talked about how government and law enforcement is continuing to crack down on zamazamas, but also, she says, having some headway as well in being able to crack down on the kingpins of illegal mining in the country. She's congratulated various South Africans that have represented the country well, among them, of course, being the Springboks at the Rugby World Cup for their successful opening match. She's also touched on South African women in science that are certainly paving the way for South Africa from a global point of view. Some interesting questions that have come in, though, for the minister by the media. Some questions, of course, around whether or not she has been briefed about the board members that have resigned from Postbank with immediate effect. Of course, that's news that we've been reporting on this morning as well. We heard there that a board chair and 2 board members of Postbank have resigned with immediate effect, citing ill treatment by the communications minister. She says that the communications minister has not yet communicated this to the cabinet, and so they're still waiting for that communication from the minister. Of course, some questions around load shedding. We see continuous struggles and frustrations in the country with load shedding, saying, of course, that Cabinet is confident that there will be some reprieve in the near future to that. A big one coming out of it has been the issue of tax revenue shortfall, right? We are seeing that SARS is having some trouble in really collecting more money from taxpayers in the country, saying that not the clearest of details at the moment about just how extensive that revenue shortfall is, but certainly that it is a continuing issue. We are going to take you back there because there has certainly been a question around the now former public protector, as she was, of course, fired by the president yesterday. And a question around what benefits the public protector then loses or still has, having lost that position. Now, former public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane.